Danielle and Sara with All Things Aging podcast, episode 2. And today we're going to meet our lovely team, Sara and Laura. Thanks, you guys, for making the time.
Of course.
To chat about you and kind of our process and all of that. So let's just kind of jump right in. And why don't you guys just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
You want to start or you want me to start?
Go for it.
All right. So, hi, I am Sara. So, I am the employee that works with Sara, the owner over in the St. Paul area. So, just really briefly, I am an RN. I've had my degree for about almost 10 years now. I have a business degree before that from UW-Eau Claire in business management. Right out of the gate from nursing school, I was doing private pay nursing for quite some time. Wore a couple different hats within that company, including some like nursing assessment work for new move-ins. And then actually Sara and I met at a hospice company. So I'm just coming out of that. But now I have been out of that for about actually almost a year on the dot. I've been with Sara. So yeah, and it's been amazing. So that is my brief background.
I'm Laura Warhol. I am with Danelle in the South Metro area. So I primarily cover like Dakota County and kind of that southern portion of the Twin Cities, but a little bit of background about me. I was in the physical therapy world for a number of years, working hands-on with patients, working with them in their homes and in assisted livings, really primarily in the same territory that I currently am in now. So it gives me a kind of a good understanding right off the bat of kind of a history with some of these communities. And then from there, I transitioned into being a hospice care consultant with a hospice agency and really enjoyed doing that. Danielle and I had, for a number of years, known each other and had met up for coffee and kind of the networking thing and whatnot. And just eventually she was like, hey, come try this thing for me. And with my background and going into the communities for so many years, it was a perfect fit and I love it. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what you like most about working with the families and finding the right, because again, you guys both have the experience, but this is a lot different. Tell us kind of, what you like the best.
Yeah, it's certainly what I like the best, and it aligned of why I liked the hospice work that I did as well is just having those real honest conversations with families and being able to be such a resource for them. When you've been in the field for so long, some of the things that we take for granted or we just know, breaking that down for families and having them have that like aha moment of, wow, I never knew that. I never knew that something like that even existed. I never knew this different thing that we should know about senior living communities. That's my favorite part, is just letting them know that I'm going to help guide you and give you as many resources as I can possibly guide you to.
Yeah, I agree. The teaching and the education is like, with backgrounds like ours, it's easy. It's helping families through literally every step of this like overwhelming, tedious process. But I think too, to be like brutally honest, as like a nurse having to delegate down and having a clinical team behind you, and even in sales, like having a clinical team behind you, sometimes it's really stressful because like even if you like get the sale or whatever the case may be, it's your job's not done. It's just nice it's just us out there, right? Like we are in charge of ourselves and helping this family. There's no clinical team behind us. It's just us. I like, it's just our small little teams. And I think that's so amazing to just have our small, like close knit unit. So that's what I really like about this too.
And to be able to showcase those communities that are the best for those families as well is really nice, to your point.
Yeah.
And having the firsthand experience. So kind of tail off that clinical side, with our backgrounds, with you, really being clinical yourself, but then, my clinical background as well, even in the various roles, getting that feedback from the team. There are those communities out there that are like, even if they have a shiny book cover to them, but then when the clinical team that you're working alongside comes back and says, yeah, looks nice, smells nice, and all the things are nice, but every time I go see my patient, they're soiled, or the care that, so like being able to share those inside scoops and having that firsthand experience to kind of help guide our conversations and where we direct our families is.
What are some, and sorry to interrupt you there, Laura, what are some of the most memorable success stories that either of you, if you care to share, have experienced?
I got one. Sure, go for it.
So I was working with this sweet, sweet family. His spouse was in a TCU, and I was working primarily with him and the son. And this level of dementia that mom and wife was experiencing, the spouse just had said, I can't do this at home anymore. I really am needing some help. And the social worker and actually the family, I met with them. Oftentimes, I'd like to meet with my families in person and get eyes on the individual that we're looking for care for or for senior housing for. So then it definitely helps paint the picture well for me on like where they might be a great fit. It just kind of checks all the boxes of like exactly how they are, because what a social worker and families say this level this person is like is totally different than going to experience them in person. So I went into my meeting with the family kind of with an idea of where I was gonna kind of have some good recommendations for them, and then I went and met the client herself and was like, okay, I like know it, scratch all that, because she's has way more further along in her dementia than what was originally being described to me. And I knew exactly where they needed to go. We still scheduled multiple tours like we typically do. But I started with that one that I knew was going to be like the aha moment for them. And we toured, and he just started crying and was like, how did you know? How did you know? I
We
can't think
love
of
making
anywhere else.
people cry.
Yes. And they were like, cancel the rest of the tours. We're going here. And I was like, yeah.
Our best success stories involve tears.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think for me too, like we have a lot. I'm sure like you can think of like a million
Mhm.
more. I think one of my favorites though so far, referral came from a good attorney friend of ours that we use all the time. She sent me a referral on a Monday, and she does, I think it was like a sister, and the other sister was living with her, and she had really bad dementia. And all of a sudden on Sunday night, she took off at like 1, 2 in the morning, crossing like a busy street in St. Paul, gone. So fine, you like, thank God, called 911, right? Found her, but like, what a scare. And the sister that I was working with was a nurse, or had been, right? They were like in their late 80s. So she sends me this referral on Monday morning. I call her. We schedule a tour on Tuesday. And I had her in that building on Thursday because that building also was able to pitch in like a bed and a chair for her. You know, it's just like those little like heartwarming. So this sister, she wasn't sleeping for 4 days.
Yeah.
Because like, can you imagine? Like she had to like lock all of her doors, and like quality of life was gone, and she was so scared. And again, just cried. Like when I brought her into this memory care and she was writing the down payment, she's sobbing. I'm like, it's okay. But yeah, it's those stories are literally why we do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What's your favorite part about working for assisted living locators?
No pressure. No pressure.
My boss.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, not to like beat a dead horse, but those success stories are literally what keep me doing this every day. Like we have all been in healthcare for a long time. Most of the people that are watching this have been in healthcare. It is hard, right? Like, man, we have some rough days. But what keeps you going is those success stories. It feels really good to find somebody a new home, because like a lot of my business specifically is TCUs, like rehabs. Those people are in crisis. They're so overwhelmed. Literally one of the first things that I say when I call them, I bet you're really overwhelmed right now. They're like, yes. So just walking them through that process and what we can all do, that sigh of relief that you hear from them, and then that down payment going down, all of that stuff. It's just like that. We're literally helping them through one of the hardest parts of their whole lives.
Yeah.
And it feels really good.
Yeah. I think too, like getting that, I'm a big one on like, I thrive off of like that gratitude, and like they're so thankful for everything that you have shared. And then the other thing that just really makes me tick in this position is when you circle back to those social workers that originally referred the family to you, and they're like, wow, thank you, Laura. That family loved you. I love you. Thanks for keeping me informed every step along the way. Like that went so slick. I don't know how you worked so much magic so quickly, but we're happy that we're discharging and, got this got everything like narrowed down and paved through to get them to the right home. So that's that. Like I literally go home on those days and like say to my husband, like, yeah, like we did it, and they were so happy, and yeah.
And I love that because again, like Sara said, healthcare is not always duckies and rainbows, you know, like it is hard. Home care, hospice, everything is really hard. But with this, you do get a lot of fulfillment. And I think that really just like drives you because you go from a stressful situation to they're thanking you, you know, and it's like, yes, it feels
The reviews.
amazing.
The
The
reviews,
reviews
like,
are huge. I know.
Like, oh my gosh, it just
Yeah.
fills it just like warms my soul. You know, like I have kids up in bed and I come down and I scroll open the phone and just do some brain dead activity on the phone and I see a review come through and I'm just like, wow, okay, that fills my cup.
Makes it all worthwhile.
It does. Yeah, it does. So let's kind of jump in to talk about how do you help families prepare? Like, what could you tell families, you know, to start preparing for this? Because again, we get a lot of people in crisis mode. You know, we get people that are prepared and it's easier and it's less stressful. But how would you, you know, how do you guys help families prepare for this transition?
You want me to start? Okay, sure. Well, I think like obviously, right, we're going to say call one of us. So, you know, working with an advisor is going to be the easiest first step, right? The things that we do behind the scenes are, you know, Sara and I was talking about like we have like kind of a 3-4 step process, right? Like we're going to sit down with these families, like Laura said too, like usually in person to begin with. This is an age group that loves to see your face. We're going to talk about things like, you know, budget, I always say for last. You know, you got to get some trust in there first before you start throwing numbers around. But we talk about acuity levels, how much help they're going to need, what assisted living actually looks like. And then, you know, finances and of course like their location where they kind of want to be. There's so many resources that we have though too in our pockets that I don't know, I'm sure Laura's in the same boat. We've never really had to say no to somebody. We can, maybe we're not the answer, but I can give you somebody that will be, right? Between all of us on all of our experience in different areas of healthcare, we're usually pretty good at being able to navigate like where to send somebody if we can't do it ourselves. Financial planners, attorneys, real estate agents, I mean, you name it. We've got lots of people to help us out. So,
yeah, I would say like the biggest thing to prepare, especially if your loved one is in a clinical setting, like if they are in a TCU setting, ask your social worker, like, where do I even start? You know, you come out of that care conference where they drop that bomb on you to say, hey, cognition level is this, and hey, what you tell us about our home, it wouldn't be safe mobility wise for your loved one to return back home. We're recommending assisted living or we're recommending memory care. That can be like, whoa, I don't know where to even begin. And that's where like ask your resources in front of you, ask the team that's having that initial conversation with you, where do I start? Is there anyone who can help me through this? And then hopefully, you know, you get you connected with someone like us, because there's no point in going out and spinning your wheels and doing tour after tour after tour at a community that can't even meet your loved one's needs or your budget. So don't waste your time. There are definitely things that you can go back to that social worker or that nurse manager and say, I need help.
Right. Because there's nothing that could compare to us being in the buildings. You know what I mean? And knowing that those staffing situations too are so huge, and who manages, you know, that community.
Leadership, you know, spend downs, elderly waiver. There's so much.
there's so much. Yeah, it's overwhelming. And even sometimes for us.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a family doing it.
Yeah. And if like in that like care center setting, like everyone there is so busy, you know, and it's like their day to day. It's like common, you know, they're sitting down and telling another family that their loved one, they're recommending assisted living. But like, what does that mean to that family? And that's where like we can come in to be like, okay, this is what we do. We know that this is overwhelming. We will help guide you through this. Like
very honest approach.
Yes. And like handhold you through every step of the way.
Yeah.
How would you say for both of you ladies that we're different than other placement agencies?
You want me to go?
Sure.
I think one of the things that makes us unique, at least for like what I feel like I bring to the table, is just that reliability and the commitment. If I have a family that reaches out to me, whether that be any family that I'm working with, word of mouth referral, TCU referral, however that family got to me, however that came, I am like all in committed to that family, to the referral source. I take it very personal to get the guidance in the right direction. And again, like Sarah said before, if it is a situation where I don't feel like I have the answer, like we have this team where, and working in the senior living industry for nearly 20 years now, like I probably have somebody I could reach out and call and say, hey, I have this unique situation going on. And so I think that that's what makes us different, is our experience and the commitment to great communication and be reliable for everything we do.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, and I'll like personally, I'm a nurse. Honestly, it's made this job. It's never easy, but it's come in handy. I'm just able to look through those medical records from the TCU. I'm able to speak that same language as the social workers over there. I can have really hard conversations easily with family. RN in this industry, it comes with a lot of trust. And I take that very seriously, that I am offering my service to them, and they're going to trust me because I am doing the right thing. But just being able to peel through records, I know Sarah has sent me before, like, what's this? And I'm like, oh yeah, this is for this. And like, let's try this approach. Those tough, like high acuity ones, sometimes they just need somebody to peel through all of that stuff. And it's come in handy. But honestly, we all have a little bit of clinical. It's really nice to have been in these buildings. When I'm telling people that I'm going to put them in a good building, it's because I've literally been in these buildings my whole career. I know who's sitting on call lights. We know what we look for when we tour. And, we let the salespeople do their thing. But while they're doing that, I'm looking around. Am I seeing staff? Is it clean? Are the residents happy? Are they smiling? Are they out of their rooms? It's, I don't know. It's been good to like pick up on all of that stuff. It makes it easier to place people.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, like, what would you say you guys look for when you're choosing the right community for someone? Because again, you'll get a referral and automatically you're like, they're going to be a great candidate here. What do you guys look for? And how do you make that match?
I look for longevity. I want this to be, like, that's part of the intake conversation that I'm having is, like, where are they in the process? How ready are they to make this their last move? Because that's my goal. I don't want to have this family go into a community just to learn that if they become a 2-person transfer, and if that's something that it's, might be medically in their future, we want to make sure that it checks all the boxes, not for only for their care level needs now, but where we're anticipating this going. And so that way, and then same thing for their budget. I don't want to work with a family that likes a particular building, but there is no elderly waiver option if this family is definitely going to need elderly waiver at some point. If they're a younger, young 70s with dementia, and we're expecting, every Alzheimer's or dementia journey is different, but we would expect that we're going to have a number of years here, possibly in front of us. So let's talk about that, and let's pick a community that checks all the boxes for your care level now and in the future, and now and in the future for your financials as well.
I couldn't agree more with that answer. Longevity. I always tell people every time, I'm looking to do this one time for you guys. And I think that's actually where being in hospice prior has been actually really helpful, because you can kind of look at that diagnosis list, see how far along they are in whatever journey they're taking. And like Laura said, not every building takes an assistive 2 or Hoyer unless they go to memory care. Weeding that stuff out is really important. So I agree. We want to make this a permanent move for the loved one. But I think too, just like, and again, most of the stuff like clean and not smelly, well, everybody's right going to look for that. But I think just to like, are the residents happy? Am I seeing a lot of staff around? Am I seeing the same staff when I'm here around the same time of day? Is the food good? Because man,
Yeah.
Food better be good.
Yeah.
I've eaten at a lot of our
Yeah.
facilities because that is important.
Yeah.
Activities.
Like during the tour to be like, hey, could we, while we're here, it
Right.
looks like it's lunchtime, would you mind if the family would try a meal?
Right.
I mean,
Love that.
to have our support, because the average family isn't going to put themselves out there like that and ask that question.
Yeah.
But while we're on the tour, to be like, kind of be a little bit of a devil's advocate and challenge the community to,
Rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Staffing levels, asking like, oh, what's your staffing level? Or telling the family before, like, hey, let's ask about this stuff today too.
Or float staff.
Yeah.
Have float
Staffing
staff in the
agency.
building. Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff is super important. And people aren't going to think to ask that, but that's where it's important for us because we want to put somebody where there's good care.
Yeah, when we do our follow-up calls, I want them to say, this is great. Like, love it. Thanks again so much for this recommendation. Couldn't be happier. We follow our families through life after we place them. And there are those occasional calls, where we place the call and they're like, things are going really good, but, the food's been cold. Okay, well, have you had a conversation with the community about that? This is the person in that community that you would want to talk to about that, but helping guide them through even things like that. There's going to be, minor bumps at every community that there is, but being able to continue to be that resource for them too, and be sure that I know that when I lay my head down on that pillow at night, we talked through all the different things that I can really imagine to make this a good fit.
What would you ladies say are some of the biggest misconceptions about senior living?
The look.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you
Yeah.
how many times I have toured. I always say the hardest part of this whole process is getting somebody out the door to tour. Because when they're sitting in a TCU, their TCUs aren't glamorous and they don't have a ton of activities and they're really just there for therapy, right? Like that's their main job is to get somebody up and running. So they think I'm going to put them in something like that. So I think a lot of times it's just like, nope, this is, a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment where your living space is separate from your, bedroom space and, full kitchens, usually washer and dryer. We can customize whatever that they want, but man, most people really like have that old misconceived notion that it's like a nursing home, and it's just not. These are true apartment style living. Of course, memory care is a little bit different and that kind of stuff, but most of the time, we really are putting them in like a really beautiful apartment, and it's just that's the hardest part. Yeah.
Both of you ladies do a really good job. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. It's obvious to all of us here in the room that you guys care a lot about, what goes into the process and these families, the seniors themselves. So, Danielle and I both thank you for that, and wanted to also encourage the listeners to, if they do have any needs or anything like that. Again, it's assisted living locators. I cover St. Paul. Danielle covers Rochester and Bloomington. Perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate you listening in, and please look for our other episodes as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.